Lights, camera, action.
All right, well, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey guys.
It is time to talk about one of my favorite movies. I'm actually really excited for today's episode. We're going to be talking about Chef, which is a 2014 movie, if I'm remembering.
Correct.
Yes. Yep. One of my all-time favorites. I'm really excited to dive into it today. So thank you guys for joining us. It is episode 2 of season 3. I can't believe how, I don't know, seems like just the other day we started season 1. So to be back in action after a long break is really nice. So without further ado, you want to take us away, Em?
I do. All right. So Chef, as Jon said, was released in 2014. To be exact, it was on March 7th that it first came out. It was directed by Jon Favreau. It's also starring Jon Favreau, as well as Scarlett Johansson. Jon, I don't know how to say his last name. Leguizamo?
I'm pretty sure it's Leguizamo.
Okay.
But I might be
I'm not even gonna
very
try it
wrong
again.
on that.
Sofia Vergara, Robert Downey Jr., MJ Anthony, Bobby Cannavale. Is that how you say his name?
I think...
And Dustin Hoffman. It was distributed by Open Road Films. This is our first Open Road Films movie, I believe.
Yes, I think that's right.
It had a runtime of 1 hour and 54 minutes. It is rated R, but it is mostly just because at the beginning of the movie, it has quite a bit of language in it. So just a heads up if you have not seen it yet. It does have language, but it's really only within the first 15 minutes or so of the movie. And then the rest of the movie is relatively clean, I would say.
Yes, it's very interesting. It's what earned the movie the R rating is purely just language. It is nothing else. Mm-hmm. And it really is probably about the first half hour of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's in there pretty strong. And then after that, the movie could probably be rated PG. So yes, viewers, if you choose to listen to this movie, be warned that there are a lot of F-bombs in this movie on the first half hour. But beyond that, it's pretty clean.
Yeah. And then the budget for this movie was $11 million, and then the box office total was $46 million.
What was the budget?
$11 million.
Okay, nice.
Yes. So I'll jump into some fun facts. My first one is that Jon Favreau took culinary classes and worked in one of Roy Choi's kitchens in order to prepare for his role and learn the dishes he makes in this movie. I don't know. I've always wanted to take like cooking classes and stuff. I feel like I'm not a bad cook, but...
No, you're not. I like your cooking.
Thank you.
Yes.
But I want to be one of those people who can just like throw something together without having to follow a recipe.
Right.
And like I love watching that when Jon's character, what's his name again? I'm forgetting.
Oh, I don't even remember off the top of my head. It is Carl.
Carl, thank you.
Carl Casper.
When Carl is cooking and he's just doing it on the fly, I love that. I think that'd be so cool to be able to do.
Yeah, I do too. There was actually a time in my life where I heavily considered going to culinary school. I love cooking. It's something that I would say I learned from both my parents, but at a young age, my dad started teaching me how to cook different dishes because he likes to cook too. So I don't know. I think there is, just kind of like you said, I have a deep appreciation for people who can just go like and make some really beautiful dishes, not just like something that tastes good, but like truly like, hey, we're going to make something that is, it's very, very tasty, but also very presentable and beautiful and whatnot.
And then, as I said in my last fast fact about Roy Choi, for those of you who don't know, well, actually, I'll let Jon explain this because he knows a lot about Roy Choi. So go ahead, Jon.
What are you wanting me to explain? I don't know
where you're going with this. Can you just explain, no, for people who don't know who Roy Choi is, like, can you just explain who he is to them?
Yeah. So Roy Choi is a very, very famous and successful chef. I talk about it a little bit more in some of the production details, but the movie itself was somewhat inspired by Roy's life. They did not plan for it to go that way. Roy was hired as a consultant on the film, and then the film lined up a lot with some events that happened in his life, which I can talk about that more a little bit later. But yeah, he's a very, very successful big-time chef that was in lots of famous kitchens, and then he got kind of fed up with that and left, opened the Kogi barbecue food truck, and then it exploded into popularity from there.
I just wanted you to explain it because all I remembered is that he was the founder of Kogi, so I didn't want to butcher anything. But yeah, so as Jon said, this movie kind of took inspiration from Roy Choi's life, and he was a co-producer and technical advisor on the movie, and he also oversaw the menus and food prepared for the film too. And in addition to that, Choi sent Favreau, like I just said a little bit ago, he sent him to culinary school. It was like a week-long intensive French culinary school, and Favreau learned things like knife skills and how to make sauces. And I have a quote from Roy Choi. He said, "I brought him into the kitchen and he just kind of fit in. I threw him a couple of tests, like a case of chives or a case of onions or 2 cases of avocados, just to see where his mind and his situation and his abilities were and how interested he was in these things. He just attacked them and he really became a part of it." So I thought that was really cool. And then after about 5 years, sorry, let me rephrase that. 5 years after this movie came out, Favreau and Roy Choi teamed up again on Jon. Would you say this is your favorite show or just one of your favorite shows? The Chef
One of my favorite shows. Yeah. So there was a spin-off Netflix series from this movie called The Chef Show, where it's Jon Favreau and Roy Choi, and it's just a cooking show.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal. I absolutely love that show. It's not your traditional cooking show, so to speak. I mean, there is a lot of language in that. It's very true to a real kitchen. If you've ever worked in the food industry, then you know that to be the case. But it's, I don't know. I mean, I love Jon Favreau, and I also love Roy Choi, and seeing them together in a show like that where like Jon is just, he's a legit chef. Like Roy's obviously the seasoned vet, but you can see Jon doing his thing, and he's a legit chef. I mean, it is so cool to see, and some of the stuff that they cook on there is amazing.
Yeah.
And each episode, not every single one, but most episodes, they have like a celebrity guest on the show.
That show is not still streaming on Netflix, is it?
It is. It's a Netflix original.
Okay.
There's 3 seasons. The 4th one never came out because COVID hit. And so then the show's been in limbo ever since then. I don't know if it'll come back. They've talked about bringing it back, but
gotcha.
Anyways.
Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of throw that side note in there that there is a show with Jon Favreau as well as like a cooking documentary. But going back to Jon Favreau's preparation for this role, Choi also put Jon to work in several of his kitchens doing like really repetitive kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Tedious tasks like picking parsley, and it was designed to keep Jon Favreau like focused on the smallest of details and to serve as like a method acting exercise, just to be able to understand the mindset of a professional chef who has to be, detail focused in a really high pressure environment. So I thought that was cool too, that he really got into the nitty gritty too with him.
Yeah, I love that. I think Roy is a great teacher, and that even comes through in the TV show too. Even though like at that point, Jon has gone through culinary school and he is experienced, like Roy takes time to teach him and whatnot. And Jon is a good student. He's very humble. And anyways, I think it's really cool to see that in the show as well. Just him being a mentor / master, like chef, teacher to Jon. It's very cool.
Yeah. Moving on from his training to star in the role, I wanted to point out the barbecue place that is briefly in the movie. It's called Franklin's Barbecue, and it's in Austin, Texas. And I actually didn't know this until just this most recent time when we watched this movie, when John leaned over to me and told me that this restaurant like pops off. Like, it is insanely busy every day, usually sells out completely before noon, and has insanely long lines of customers waiting to get in hours and hours before it opens.
It's revered as one of the best barbecue places in the nation.
Yeah.
And maybe even the world, because this is Texas barbecue. This is, native to the United States. So potentially one of the best barbecue places in the world. But yes, Aaron Franklin is the owner of the restaurant. He appears in the movie, but he also appears in the show a bunch, just as being an actual chef. But I actually own 2 of his cookbooks, as well as I got some for my dad. But he is like the reigning expert on Texas barbecue. And I don't know. It's so funny to see, like, in the movie, the Franklin Barbecue restaurant. When they walk in there, it's like, there's a handful of people in there and everybody's just kind of hanging out. That is so, like, not how the case. Is. If you just Google Franklin Barbecue and click images, you will literally see lines out the door, because that place is absolutely packed. He's just revered. It is, at this point, just a destination spot. Like, hey, if you're in Texas, you got to go here because it's the best place in the country, world, whatever. His story, not to get like too off track, but his story is actually very interesting as well. He talks about it in his cookbook, but he pretty much just started out in his backyard. He just started wanting to learn about like the classic original Texas barbecue, making a brisket, and he started trying, and people literally started lining up in his backyard wanting to pay him.
Yeah.
And so from there, it just caught fire, and he got a restaurant and so on. But anyways,
you should do that, John.
I would love to. It'd be very cool.
My next fact is that toward the film's end, the food truck is seen at it's like a nighttime food truck event, and it has like a bunch of Los Angeles' most popular food trucks. And this is actually a real event in Venice called First Fridays, where just a bunch of food trucks come out. And for a brief moment in this scene, you can see Roy Choi's Kogi truck, which is the food truck that started like a gourmet food truck craze in the United States.
Yes.
Next is that scene where Carl and his son Percy are in the movie theater. So for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure most people know, that Jon Favreau is in a lot of Marvel movies, and he produced a lot of Marvel movies, or directed, both. He's produced a lot too, but he directed Iron Man 1 and Iron Man 2. Yes. And they kind of tied in Iron Man just very briefly into this movie, because in the movie theater, it features the audio from Iron Man's repulsor rays as a nod to Favreau's previous work with the Iron Man films.
Yes, and there's actually a little bit more to that story. There was a very specific reason why that was included, but I'll get into that in the production details.
Okay. And then my last fun fact is that Jon Favreau does not have tattoos in real life, but many chefs, including Roy Choi, get tattoos as a way of demonstrating like their commitment to their cooking craft, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So John had some temporarily applied for the sake of just being like more authentic to his role.
Yeah. Most chefs have that knife tattoo. That
I love that. I thought that looked
John
really
has
cool
in the film.
Yeah,
the big chef's knife. Yes, yeah. I agree.
All right, that's all I got.
Okay. Well, I've got some production details. So Jon Favreau wrote the film's script in about 2 weeks. He had wanted to make the film make a film about chefs for a long time, and decided that after having worked on some really big productions, Iron Man 2, Elf, he wanted to make it a small independent film because he thought it would serve the story better as opposed to being a big big budget production. While working on the film, he hired chef Roy Choi to serve as a consultant on the film. Prior to signing on to the film, when Choi was kind of discussing or in talks to join, he made certain that Favreau was committed to telling an authentic story about chefs and the food industry, and that it was not going to be getting like the Hollywood effect, just kind of romanticized or inauthentic, I guess is a good way to put it. And Favreau was absolutely committed, so much so that he went to culinary school and later shadowed Choi as one of his kitchen crew. And just sidebar here, I know I mentioned earlier on Roy Choi that he used to work in like big 5-star restaurants and he left and whatnot. Since then, because the Kogi truck has become so massively popular, I believe Roy actually owns like 5 restaurants now.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of similar to, again, the Chef movie, where he leaves all of that, gets the food truck, it pops off and is insane in popularity, and then at the end of the movie, Carl Casper gets his own restaurant. So anyways, Jon went and worked and shadowed Roy in one of his own kitchens, which you mentioned quite a bit already. So moving on, the film is semi-autobiographical, as Favreau is a father with a very busy career and is always away from home at times. But it also, the story of Chef mirrors his experience in the film industry a little bit too. So Favreau has worked on big budget films, as mentioned before, Iron Man, Iron Man 2. When working on Iron Man 2, he lost some of his creative control over the movie, and it became a pretty big point of contention for him, to the point where he was kind of fed up and wanted to walk away from big budget films as a whole. That was not his intended career path, so to speak. When Favreau signed on to do Iron Man, and Iron Man was a breakout hit, I mean, just a huge success. He was scheduled or slated, contracted, whatever you want to call it, to do Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, and direct the Avengers. He was supposed to do all of them. And then Iron Man 2, unfortunately, Marvel Studios kind of decided that they needed to have a little bit more say in the creative process, and it really left Favreau kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but it really was a discouraging process for him going through all of that, because Iron Man did release to mixed reviews, or Iron Man 2. After Iron Man 1 was such a mega hit, everybody loved it, it was fantastic, and then Iron Man 2 came out and it was kind of wishy-washy. People liked it overall, but it was not the follow-up that people were wanting to the original Iron Man. And there are a lot of interviews where Favreau talks about this and just how there were so many things that were originally intended that were changed that was not up to him. And the reason that I kind of hit on earlier, the sound from Iron Man being included in the movie theater, the reason that is in there is to kind of make mention, I guess, or point to the fact that this is where Jon Favreau was in real life at the time of making the movie. After walking away from Iron Man 2, he took a little bit of a break, and then he made this movie. So if you pay attention during that scene when Carl and Percy are in the movie theater, Carl looks so disinterested and disgusted with life in general, and he's annoyed. And then you hear the Iron Man sound, and it's pretty much confirmation for him that he's saying, this is not what I wanted to do with my life. This was kind of taken away from me. And so the movie Chef itself kind of mirrors his life in the sense that the 5-star restaurant was these big budget Marvel films, and Dustin Hoffman, being the guy who owns the restaurant, starts vocalizing and taking away his creative control that he used to have. That was kind of Marvel Studios. And so then he's, okay, well, I'm going to go off and do my own thing.
I like that.
making chef, or in then, you know, in the movie itself, it's going into a food truck. But
Yeah. Good for him.
anyways, yes, it was very interesting. So anyways, kind of circling back, not only does it mirror Jon Favreau's experiences in real life, but it also mirrors Roy Choi's life as he worked as a chef in fine dining restaurants and left to run his own Kogi Korean barbecue food truck. And as I mentioned before, Choi now owns his own restaurants, I think 4 or 5 of them. I know there's multiple that he owns in Vegas, in addition to his food truck. And then last but not least, principal photography on the film began in July 2013 in Los Angeles. Other filming locations include Miami, New Orleans, and Austin because they, quote, possess a rich food and music culture.
Very nice.
Yes.
I'd like to go to New Orleans.
Yeah, I've never been. Actually, I don't know if I know anybody who's been.
My parents have been.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I guess I do then. But anyways, it's from everything I hear, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of places we haven't been that would be cool to kind of check out. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, it is time to rate the movie. You want to go first?
Sure. All right. So I think I'm going to give this movie a 53. Just kidding.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know that you're joking.
I'm going to give this movie a 96.
Okay.
It is probably in my top 5 to 10. I haven't made like an actual list of my top 5 to 10, but if I had to guess, it'd probably be up there with my top favorite movies of all time, just because I don't know, there's something about it. I think the training and the dedication to detail and authenticity really shows big time as you're watching the movie. And it's so funny because just recently, John and I have had several people come up to us asking, when are you going to start the podcast back up? And, that kind of thing, just since we've been on a little break. And we've, got to talking about the movies we're planning to do. And a lot of the time when we say chef, we get one of 2 reactions. We either get, oh my gosh, like that's an amazing movie. Or we get, oh, I've never seen that movie. Yeah. And it's like when we try to explain it, it really doesn't sound like it would be that amazing of a movie. Because it's usually just, well, it's about this chef that works in a restaurant and, he just kind of starts to struggle and has this big, I don't know, what would you call it? Like when the food critic, yeah. And then he decides to start selling his food out of a food truck. And I don't know, the way, I just feel like it doesn't sound as amazing as it is. I think it's a movie that you really have to just watch.
You have to watch this movie.
It's just so hard to put into detail, or into words, I guess, how amazing it really is. Because, I don't think I would have ever, when John was first explaining it to me, because I think you had first seen it before me, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you were explaining it to me for the first time, I was like, I don't know. I'll watch it, yeah, but I don't know if this is a movie that's, I have a very specific type of movie I like to watch, I guess. Yeah. And this just doesn't really sound like it'd be up my alley, but worth a shot. And then we got done watching it. I was like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Right. So I don't know. Sorry, that was a big ramble, but
no, I love it. I think everything you said, I just want to echo. We were talking about this with our pastor, Jeff, who has been a guest on the show a couple times now, and he's going to come back this season for Moneyball. So excited for that. But we were talking about it with him and some other friends, and pretty much the consensus, because Jeff has seen this movie and he loves this movie as well. Mm-hmm. The thing that he said that we also felt and said, this is just a special movie. Mm-hmm. There are very few, if any, movies that come to mind that are like this. Mm-hmm. I just don't know how to explain it. It's not as much the story per se, because there are all kinds of movies about people who lose their way and kind of have to find their path again, lose their confidence or whatever. Like those stories are a dime a dozen. They're all over because it's very true to life. Like they're good stories. What makes this different is how much heart this film has. And I think that's really the only way that I can describe why this movie is so good and so likable, is just because it's a very intimate film. It's very special, and it has lots of heart and character. Like I don't know any other way to explain it other than that.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched it, you just need to go watch it.
Yeah. And I don't even think that we're overhyping it or anything. Like it's just like we're not going to get your hopes up and then you're going to be let down. I don't think.
No.
I just think it's just a very well-rounded, and like you said, it's very special, very well done.
Right. Like just like don't go into it with the expectations that we're saying this is on the same level as Interstellar. In terms of like some of my favorite movies, I would probably say that this is right there with Interstellar. This may be my favorite movie, tied with Interstellar, but they are not the same. This is not an epic. This is not Interstellar. It's not Avengers Infinity War or anything like that.
It's a story.
It's just a great story. It's really, really well written. It's really well directed. And I think that's mostly what Jon Favreau brings to the table. He's a great storyteller. That's why Iron Man 1 is so phenomenal, because it's character driven, it's well acted, and you're invested in the story regardless of what it's about, because how well the characters are written. And I really think that's why this movie is so good. Percy being, I don't remember how old he was in the movie. Like
probably 9 or 10.
Yeah, I was going to say 10. Like even him, and I believe this was probably MJ, I can't think of his last name, the actor who portrays Percy. He does a great job. And I believe this was his first film, but he did a great job. His relationship with Jon Favreau, or Carl Casper, in the movie is very believable. I really enjoy his character a lot. And I guess I've kind of been rambling for a little bit without ever even giving a score, but this is a hard movie for me to score. I'm just going to go with my gut, and I'm just saying 97.
All right.
Like it's not this huge epic or anything. It's just a great movie. So yeah, I could go on and on, but anyways, yeah, I love this movie. If you haven't watched it, go watch it.
Yes. Also, I'm late on this, but MJ's last name is Anthony.
Okay, MJ Anthony. Yes.
All right. Well, what were some of your favorite scenes, Jon?
That's a tough one. It has been a little bit since we watched the movie and are now recording, so I don't recall everything. But I think, like, oh man, there are so many little moments in this film that are just like such, like, they're little gold nuggets. Like every single one of them, they're just like special, and they're so great. I really like them traveling city to city and then just kind of figuring out like, hey, what's going to be the menu this time? And I especially love, I think it was in New Orleans when they arrived, and then Carl took Percy shopping, and he was like, "What are we doing?" And he's like, "No, I just wanted to spend time with you. Like, we're just walking around." And he bought him beignets, and he's like, "Oh, that's, pretty cool," and whatnot. But I really love that. I think as a whole, the whole father-son dynamic in this film is really special. I feel like you don't see that as much in films anymore, but I think, again, just kind of like the smaller scope of the movie, being able to spend time on something that's so mundane's not the right word, but just like so maybe commonplace, like just, a son spending time with his dad. Like it's very small in scope. It's not, Iron Man flying a nuke out of New York, but it is so special because every single one of us, whether we have a relationship with our dad or not, that's something that we long for. You know what I mean? Just longing for that father and child, son or daughter relationship is so special. And so seeing that play out over the course of the film, and Carl taking time to really cultivate that relationship as he has realized that he's failed as a father, and pretty much that being the through line of the story, that I just want to spend time with my kid. That is so cool. I really love that Carl's wife in the movie is so like on board with like, yeah, just go spend time with your dad. Anytime that Percy texts her and is like, hey, can I go do this with dad? She's like, yes. Like it's literally like 30 seconds and Percy's like, hey, she responded and said yes. So he's able to go like the whole summer and just spend it with his dad. That is so cool. And I love like when they're sitting on top of the truck and John's talking to him about like, hey, you know, like the summer is almost coming to an end and I don't want you to be surprised that we're not going to be able to do this as often because you'll have school and everything. But like this summer has meant so much to me and it's been so special. And it just, again, the time that you get to spend with these characters is so intimate, and that's what makes it so good. I just love that. I feel like I really didn't even answer the question. Okay. And there's more scenes that I could continue talking about, but I feel like I'm just kind of just talking about the bigger picture, I guess, of the film.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific scenes that really stick out to you?
I do have a couple, but I mean, I'm in the same boat as you. A lot of mine are very general, but I did type some out just so I wouldn't forget everything I wanted to say. So I'm probably going to be a little bit repetitive of what you're saying. I'll try not to be. But one thing that I did want to make note of is I also, like you said, like how Percy's mom is very on board with everything, but I also appreciate that she and Carl have like a really good relationship. Although they're split up, like I love that they never are, I don't know, like there's never any like tension in between them, and they're not, it's not like a bitter divorce. I really appreciate that. I also, this is a very generalized thing, I just love watching all of the cooking scenes. I love watching them just do their thing, and I don't know, I enjoy it. It's like therapeutic to me.
Yes, I agree. I think, sorry, not to cut you off, but I think the scene where they're driving through the night going to one of the next cities, and Percy's awake, and John Leguizamo's character, I don't remember his character's name. Martin.
It's Martin.
When Martin is putting cornstarch down his pants to help with the chafing and whatnot, he's like, oh, Dad, look at this. He's putting cornstarch down his pants. And then his dad is like, hey, give me some. And then he's like, here, you try it, Percy. And then, just like that whole thing, like that's so funny. But it's not trying like overly hard to be funny. It's a relatable moment that is, I don't know. It's just good.
Yeah. I also absolutely love the relationship between Percy and Carl. And I specifically really like how Percy is so transparent about his feelings and is always like trying to help his dad and teach him things, like especially about like social media. And he's so into promoting the food truck, and I love that he was just constantly like taking pictures and videos, and that we see the payoff of that in the end where Carl is watching the video. That makes me tear up pretty good.
That scene always makes me shed a tear, because I think, does he say like taking 1 second of a video every day, a 1 second video. Yeah. And Carl and Martin kind of tease him. They're like, oh, what is this? Kids today, blah, 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 whatever. But then once Percy goes back and they watch that video, man, that is just like, it just hits you right in the heart. It is so touching and so special. And that really, like, that highlights what is so great about this movie. There's nothing else like that. Like, I have never seen a movie that's like that just has so much heart and has just such a quiet moment like that, where, and it's so real. Carl is just watching this and you feel like you're him. Like you're just getting to watch this video through his eyes, and he is so, like, you feel so happy that they made those memories together. But also so sad that it's over, that Percy's going back to school, and like, it's just such a complex but small scene. It's, oh man, it's so great. I love it.
Yeah. And I also just I love pretty much all of the food truck scenes. I love when they're like, it shows them working together and just like enjoying each other and having fun together. And I especially love when they first have it like all set up and they have it open, or they're about to open it just to the workers that were sitting over like at a table. Do you remember that scene? And like when Carl gives Percy his first quote unquote job on the truck to watch and make sure that the bread on the sandwich is golden brown and the cheese is melted, and you can just see how seriously Percy is taking that job. And I love the payoff too when they all try it and it's like done perfectly. And I just think that's a fun scene.
Like, that scene is one of the first ones where I think it's just Casper, Carl. It might have been Martin too, but they actually have to get on Percy and correct him a little bit, because one of the sandwiches, I think it's like slightly burnt. Like, it's not bad, but he's getting ready to serve it, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm getting ready to serve it or whatever. And he's like, no, it has to be golden brown, cooked perfect. And he's like, what difference does it make, that they're not paying for it? And he's like, no, that's not what this is about. And if you're going to have that attitude, then you can't be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's not about they're getting free food. It's about, we are making the best possible dish that we can do to serve to these people. And that, I mean, I don't know. It's just so good.
Yeah, it really is.
I think the overall message of this film is, I think that's why I love the movie so much, is the overall message, or the takeaway that at least I pull away from it. Because, we've kind of mentioned the storyline, but to reiterate, I guess, that you start out in this really high-end 5-star restaurant where Carl is the chef of, and, Carl is revered as this really great chef in the cooking community. And then the critic shows up and pretty much pans Carl, says that he's a has-been and a wash-up. He's just playing it safe. He's not creative anymore, this, that, and whatever. And then he kind of goes through this crisis and blows up a little bit and has to go on a self-discovery journey. And in the process gets to spend a lot of time with his son, and decides to go back to his roots and open up the food truck. And it from there, the story just kind of unfolds. I think why I love this movie so much is, in essence, what the film is kind of conveying is that you should be true to yourself by being who you were created to be.
Right.
And, Carl was in a position where I'm sure he was financially well taken care of, and he got to be in this really well-regarded kitchen, but he was not able to be who he was created to be. And he was almost being a puppet for Dustin Hoffman's character, who was just saying, you have to do this, whatever. I don't care. It's all about the money. Because that's all it is for Dustin. He does not care about anything other than, this place is packed out. I don't care that there's a critic here tonight. You're going to make the menu that sells well, because we just want to make money. And I think that's what's simultaneously so heartbreaking and beautiful, is that he just says, you know what, I'm done. You keep moving the goalposts on me. I can't continue to do this anymore. And he goes on this journey and just says, you know what, this is who I am. This is who I was created to be, the gifts that I've been given. So I'm going to serve others to the best of my ability, which we see that in the scene we were just talking about,
right,
in the food truck, that, hey, we're not going to do this just to, oh, hey, here's some free food, but, like half-heartedly. We're not doing it half-heartedly. We're going to serve others to the best of our ability by being who we were created to be. And I think that's the big takeaway for me.
Well said.
Thank you. But I could go on and on and on about this film. I love that at the end of it, that Jon Favreau's character, Carl, gets to remarry Sofia Vergara. Inez. I love that they get remarried. I love that Carl and the critic, let's see here, Ramsey Michael is his name, played by Oliver Platt. I love that they get to bury the hatchet.
I do too.
I love that it's more than just burying the hatchet. He literally bankrolls him and says, hey, you can own your own restaurant. I will pay for it. Just keep doing what you're doing. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's a really cool turnaround.
Yes, I absolutely love that. I think it's really special. Something that you don't see super often in film is kind of that same thread. And I love too that they do have like a big blow up at the beginning of the film, and that Jon has that breakdown, and that you kind of get to see the journey through him wrestling with, well, this person said this about me and whatever. And it really kind of came down to a misunderstanding. Because Michael or Oliver Platt's character, I just said it a minute ago, Ramsey Michael.
Mm-hmm.
That he was like, oh, I thought we were just, playing up the show on Twitter. It was basically just a misunderstanding because Carl didn't really know anything about Twitter. And I don't know. It's so well done, so well handled. I love that thread in the film as well. And it's just another reason why I think this film is so good, and you should go watch it.
You should. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I could go on and on and on, but I think I've covered the majority of the things that I want to say. Is there anything that you have that you want to touch on before we wrap up?
No, I think you pretty well covered it.
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us again. We're excited about this season, and we are going to be joining you again, or hoping that you join us, I should say, for our next episode, which is Pirates of the Caribbean 3. We've done the first two movies, one in season 1, one in season 2. If you haven't listened to them, go check them out. But yes, we are going to be covering Pirates of the Caribbean 3 at World's End, the end of the original Pirates trilogy, which is streaming on Disney+. If you haven't seen it, go check it out, and we will see you guys next time where we talk about it.
See you later.
Thanks, guys. Take care.